Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And welcome to the HODLNOTS Weekly Warm-Up. I'm John.
I'm Vicky.
Are you sure? And this is the news at 9 a.m. UTC. Welcome to it. Let's get into some of the crypto headlines, making headlines over the last couple of days, if not the last week. Vicky.
Yes, and as usual, really, we're going to start with Bitcoin because hopefully some good news. Bitcoin sees reduced selling pressure as the Feds in the States, FOMC, which is the Federal Open Market Committee, meeting yields rate cut. So the Bitcoin market is currently seeing easing pressure after a period of intense selling from investors. The declining pressure is evident in reduced deposits onto the exchanges and a significant recovery, maybe not so significant, but a recovery in Bitcoin's price over the last 3 weeks. So analysts at the research firm CryptoQuant reported that continued low selling pressure could trigger a relief rally in Bitcoin. This uptrend could be supported by the 25 basis points interest rate cut announced by the Federal Reserve during the just concluded Federal Open Market Committee. So, as we said last week, that's great. They did do a rate cut, but see it and trade it. Please just see it and trade it.
Absolutely. There's lots of talk, and there's actually bets out at the moment whether Bitcoin will hit 100,000 by the end of the year. But to Vicky's point, as we've said so many times now, is that trade what you see, trade safely. Now, someone who's always quite bullish, any dip in the market, good old Michael Saylor. He's been hinting at the one of the latest Bitcoin purchases with this recent price drop. So according to O'Daily, strategy chairman Michael Saylor has suggested a potential new purchase of Bitcoin following a price decline to a 2-week low of 87,600 by yesterday or Sunday evening. Saylor had hinted at this move with a post on the X platform stating, "Back to more orange dots." And for those of you unfamiliar with that saying, he often plots every single time the company strategy purchases more Bitcoin with an orange dot on a chart. Now, Strategy's most recent acquisition was on December 12th when it purchased 10,624 Bitcoin, marking the largest purchase since late July. Currently, Strategy holds only 660,624 Bitcoin, valued at approximately 58.5 billion at the current price, with an average cost of around 74,000 per Bitcoin. Go strategy.
Yeah, and go strategy because it looks like they're hanging on to the NASDAQ because the Saylor strategy hangs on by its little claws to the top 100% NASDAQ index. So the Bitcoin heavy firm MSTR, which is strategy, will remain in the NASDAQ 100 index, surviving the annual reshuffle that saw several household names dropped from it. So the firm, which actually began business as a software provider, pivoted in 2020 to stockpiling Bitcoin as its core strategy. It has then since accumulated, as John just mentioned, about 660,000 Bitcoin worth about 58 billion, and it was added to the index last December. So unlike traditional companies and index, Strategy's performance is tightly tethered to Bitcoin's price. So its business model, which involves buying and holding massive quantities of cryptocurrency, has inspired similar moves by smaller firms, but drawn criticism from analysts and index providers. I think they're doing fairly well for themselves, though, so I don't think I'll be, over if they drop off.
Absolutely. So there were
Mm.
some rumors 2 weeks ago around this, whether or not MSTR, MicroStrategy strategy, was going to be
Mm.
removed from the Nasdaq Index 100. But luckily, for whatever reason, they're still around. Now, speaking about adoption and still sticking around, and kind of an evolution, this is kind of what we often touch on in these headlines, is South America. Now, we all know about El Salvador, which is Bitcoin country. We've spoken about Bolivia before, and we've also touched on Venezuela. Now, Venezuela, like with a lot of other developing or even third world countries, where their banking issues are pretty much every day, In Venezuela, stablecoin usage is likely to keep expanding amid the economic instability. As mentioned, a lot of countries are going through this. Now, Venezuelans are already heavily reliant on blockchain technology for banking after suffering through a decade of economic pressure. However, usage is likely to continue growing if conditions worsen in the South American country, according to a blockchain intelligence firm called TRM Labs. Now, you all know what's happening in Venezuela, well, regarding the US and Venezuela and their relationships. Now, to this point, as regional and geopolitical tensions continue to rise, driven in part by the US-Venezuelan tensions, which causes macroeconomic instability, and the bolivar, which is their currency, continued devaluation. Now, TRM Labs team has predicted in a report last week, Thursday, that demand for stable coins as both a store of value and a medium of exchange will continue to rise. At the same time, regulatory ambiguity and continued uncertainty surrounding the country's crypto regulator, authority, and enforcement capacity, and also the eroding trust in traditional banking infrastructure could prolong the population's dependence and drive for more usage on stablecoins. Now, peer-to-peer, some of you might know P2P, transfers made from one person to another through an intermediary, along with USDT to fiat conversions, have emerged as key services that Venezuelans are using in the absence of reliable domestic banking channels. For most Venezuelans, stablecoins now operate as a substitute for retail banking, facilitating payroll, family remittances, vendor payments, and cross-border purchases in the absence of consistent domestic financial services. So this is what the world is turning to, ladies and gents, where we find traditional banking systems starting to fail. That's where cryptocurrencies step in. Back to you.
Yeah, and Pakistan actually is following Venezuela and a lot of other countries because they are courting Binance to tokenize $2 billion of their state assets and launch the stablecoin. So Pakistan has signed a memorandum of understanding with the crypto exchange Binance to explore tokenizing, as I mentioned, up to $2 billion of government assets, which includes sovereign bonds, treasury bills, and commodity reserves. According to Reuters, the plan would test whether blockchain-based distribution of real-world assets could improve liquidity, transparency, and access to international investors. The commodities under consideration would include reserves such as oil, gas, metals owned by the government. The country's crypto council is also looking to develop a national stablecoin. So more and more countries are jumping on the stablecoin and tokenization. So I think that's fantastic.
Absolutely. Now, we have spoken about Pakistan in the last couple of weeks. There are more than 100 million adults in Pakistan itself that are debanked. They do not have access to banking systems. So, this is definitely a movement in the right direction. Now, one of the features we often cover, or one of the story themes and genres we cover, is security. Now, we've spoken about this a few times on our HODLNOTS Happy Hour Hangouts. We've covered such stories or similar stories in past weekly warm-ups as well. And this is something to be aware of. You know, we've been using Zoom, especially since COVID, but we use Zoom right now, correct? So something to be aware of, ladies and gents, and you might have heard some stories around this, but we wanted to reiterate this. So North Korean fake Zoom crypto hacks are now a daily threat. So, cybersecurity nonprofit Security Alliance, otherwise known as SEAL, warns they're now seeing multiple daily attempts by North Korean hackers, shout out North Korea, to scam victims using fake Zoom meetings. Now, the scam involves tricking victims into downloading malware during a fake Zoom call, which enables hackers to steal sensitive data, including passwords and private keys. So, security researcher Taylor Monahan warned that the tactic has already looted over 300 million from users to date. Monahan said that the scam starts with a message from a Telegram account of someone known to the victim who is lulled into a false sense of security due to this familiarity. The conversation then leads to an invitation to catch up over Zoom. They'll share a link before the call that is usually masked to look real. There you can see the person and some of the other partners and colleagues. However, once the call begins, the hackers feign or pretend audio issues and send a patch file, which, when opened, infects devices with malware. The hackers then end the sham call under the guise of rescheduling for another day. Now, unfortunately, he says your computer is already compromised. They just played cool to prevent detection. They will eventually take all of your crypto and your passwords and your company and your protocols shit as well, and even including your Telegram account. They will then go on to wreck all of your friends. So, ladies and gents, even there might be an acquaintance or somebody you've met in the crypto space or elsewhere before, always a double check. Make sure that you have 2FA. Make sure you do all the security checks before jumping on a Zoom call. Even if it was myself or Vicky who sent you a Zoom call request, and we pretend that there are audio issues or whatever it may be. Always DYOR. But ladies and gents, as crypto becomes more and more globally adopted, we're going to see more and more very intricate scams coming along. Vicky, back to you.
Yeah, and hopefully I don't know if they'll ever catch the North Koreans, but someone that they have caught is Do Kwon. So I don't know if you know or anyone knows who Do Kwon is, but he is the founder of Terraforma Labs. And he's been sentenced to 15 years in US federal prison for what the judge called an epic generational fraud. So for those who aren't sure who he actually is Terra Luna. And we all, not all of us I can remember very like it was yesterday watching that go down and down and down and down and down and down into nothing. So he basically pleaded guilty to conspiracy to defraud and wire fraud after admitting he misled investors about how Terra USD regained its dollar peg, concealing that the trading firm secretly propped it up. So the Terra USD Luna collapse in 2022 wiped out an estimate $40 billion. So the prosecutors sought at least 12 years. Kwon asked for 5 to return to South Korea, but the judge actually imposed 15, citing the scale of losses and the repeated lies told to investors. Hundreds of victims submitted letters describing heavy personal losses as well. So Kwon earlier agreed to a 4.55 billion civil settlement with the SEC, including an 80 million personal penalty and a ban on crypto transactions. So I don't know if anyone on the call can remember. I was actually awake during when this happened, and we just watched it down and down and down. But they kind of did it themselves. So he has been sentenced to 15 years in prison for that.
Yeah, we know of a few others as well. And there's a story coming up, kind of similar, in a short while. But that said, we also like to include a few feel-good stories as well. We've done pretty much one in every single broadcast, and this is a sign of the changing times. Satoshi Nakamoto has appeared, or at least a statue has appeared on the New York Stock Exchange in the sign of changing times. Now, the New York Stock Exchange has become the sixth host of Valentina Picozzi's disappearing Satoshi Nakamoto statue. It is a striking shift from just a few years ago when crypto was still taboo on Wall Street. So long seen as a bastion of traditional finance, the New York Stock Exchange called the installation shared ground between emerging systems and established institutions in an ex post on Wednesday. Now, the statue was installed by Bitcoin firm 21 Capital, which began trading this week. The design itself is the work of Picozzi, who wrote on X under her Satoshi Gallery handle saying that seeing her latest piece in such a high-profile setting is mind-blowing. She says, "This is such an achievement. Even in our wildest dreams, we wouldn't think about placing the statue of Satoshi Nakamoto in this location." Now, this is the sixth of 21 statues of Satoshi Nakamoto and has found its home in the New York Stock Exchange. It also happens to coincide with the anniversary of the Bitcoin mailing list, which Nakamoto launched on December 10th, 2008. Picozzi has 5 other Nakamoto statues around the world, located in Switzerland, El Salvador, Japan, Vietnam, and Miami in Florida. The statue itself wants to give, and there's a great picture as well, guys, Google it. The statue itself wants to give to the viewer this feeling of disappearance and the sense that the inventor stays between the lines. As of today, Satoshi exists in the lines of Bitcoin code, allowing humanity to have the first decentralized payment system, she said. She also goes on to comment, "It represents a hacker in his stereotype pose, sitting with a laptop on his leg, and is a tribute to all of the developers and programmers around the world that help build the Bitcoin ecosystem, fighting for transparency and for freedom. That's fantastic. Looking forward to the other ones that'll be coming out sometime soon. Back to you, Rudy. I mean, Vicky.
Yeah, that's actually super fun. I actually want to go to New York just to see that now, especially on Wall Street. But yeah, so and another fun thing. So a meme coin. Now, I think a lot of projects are realizing that meme coins are great, but it is actually better to have a use case behind their coins and a good one. And Trump, who most of us have actually traded, so the Trump meme coin gets a makeover with the Billionaires Club game. So the Trump Billionaires Club is a new mobile and web game launching on December 30th, and it's built around that Trump meme coin. So just keep that in mind, everyone, because something could happen, but see it and trade it. Don't listen to me. So the website states that Freedom 45 Games is licensing Trump's name and says it's entertainment, not an investment. The driving force is Bill Zanker, a longtime associate behind prior Trump's NFTs and the Trump token. So it's basically a Monopoly style board game it's set in a digital New York. You roll the dice and you move around the board and buy and upgrade properties and invest in businesses and buy luxury items and climb a billionaire ladder to become the richest player. So really just like Monopoly. So all in-game activities run through Trump, which is the coin. Players can deposit and spend the token in the game, and the play-to-earn system is driven less by skill and more by three things: your leaderboard rank, how many people you refer, and how many Trump tokens you hold. So the team is promising up to $1 million in Trump rewards, the Trump coin, with up to 50,000 for the top player and smaller amounts for others. There's already a pre-launch leaderboard running until December 26, with the rewards paid out weekly over 12 weeks after a short audit period. So we've all traded Trump before, and I think I'm going to keep watch on Trump because that could, even though this is the news and you don't trade the news, you trade the chart, I think we'll be seeing the chart, something happening to the chart around that time, at least, which is actually super fun. Why not?
Absolutely. Great for scalp trading or participate in the game, but you guys have heard the criteria to participate or at least be on the leaderboard. Interesting. Now, we thought we'd wrap up this call with one last interesting story as well. Kind of hinted at that earlier. Now, you all remember the Welsh entrepreneur who lost his 8,000 Bitcoin on a hard drive that was thrown in the dump. We've all heard that story. Well, Netflix is making a movie, but not quite about that. And this is huge. So next, Netflix has just teased a comedy movie about a missing $35 million crypto password. Now, the film is titled One Attempt Remaining, about a couple trying to regain access to millions of dollars worth of crypto, which mirrors real-world crypto dilemmas. Now, streaming service Netflix announced this new comedy focus on one couple's attempt to remember a password and gain access to $1 million worth of cryptocurrency. Now, in this Thursday notice, Netflix said that Hollywood star Jennifer Garner would be one of the leads in the movie One Attempt Remaining. Now, the comedy feature would focus on the story of two people who divorced only to discover the cryptocurrency that they won together on a cruise is now worth millions, but they've forgotten the password. According to what's on Netflix, the story will include a notice from the US Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, and the couple would have 48 hours to retrieve $35 million from the wallet before the claim expires. Now, although crypto and blockchain have made inroads into US culture and global culture through movies and television series in the last 15 years, some of you might remember The Big Bang Theory and a few others as well, the technology, more cryptocurrency and blockchain technology has really been the main focus of a feature film. Now, for all of you and us who are in crypto, I mean, that sounds like it's going to be a fun comedy. Otherwise, it's Jennifer Garner. Other than that, yeah, so more and more mainstream is being adopted. We've seen a few series or docu-series as well around this, but something else to look forward to. And that's a wrap of the crypto headlines. So let's move on. What's happening with the fear and the greed index?
Yeah, the fear and greed index actually has remained fairly steady over the weekend, or the crypto market has remained fairly steady over the weekend. It's quite have been vanilla. It's been very vanilla over the weekend, which is what this is. It's just Hmm. So Bitcoin, as John will show you later, it's really just kind of bouncing in between this channel at the moment. And like I said, rather vanillally. um, there actually were a few good runs by some minor altcoins though, and which is good. And actually what happens when Bitcoin goes sideways. So HODLNOTS would still have an opportunity to scalp and HODL fire up a storm this weekend. Now, the fear and greed index is down a bit again from last week's 20 to about 16. And I think it's really just people, I mentioned this last week, people are just getting weary and they just don't know what the market's doing, if the market's going to recover or not. And why it's really why we keep saying just filter all the noise out of what's happening, the rate cuts, the games that are being launched. This just see it and trade it because it's the best thing to do, especially for scalping and hodl firing. Because you never know. I mean, that Trump game might go bump out into the toilet and doesn't run. So just if the charts look good, trade it. But that's actually what's happening with the fear and greed index. Meh, just meh. Really? Mm.
All right. As mentioned last week, we had a look at what Bitcoin was going to potentially do for the for that week. And I did say then, and I'll say it again, it looks like we are going to be going sideways. And like Vicky's point now as well is that even if Bitcoin is kind of going sideways, at least the market's a bit stable. We don't want to see it dropping so much. And the fact is that sideways allows a lot of these other altcoins to run. But again, you have to do all your research. But that said, what is looking what's looking good for Bitcoin this week? Well, there's a little bit of resistance ahead, and I said this last week Monday, and I'm gonna say it again. I'd like to see Bitcoin close, a candle close around the 93,000 odd area for us to start moving upwards again. And once we start getting up there, we've got a few other resistance points, and again, that big psychological of 100,000 up ahead. So at the moment, there's still a fair bit of fear in the market, as we've just seen, and we're anticipating Bitcoin to go a little bit more sideways as it struggles with some of this resistance in and around this area over the next couple of days. So I'm keeping eyes out. Once it closes, the next day candle closes around 70,000. Sorry, 70,000. No, let's not go there. 93,000. We're going to be looking to cross what I meant to say, the 97,000 odd area as well. So there's quite a bit of turmoil, a little bit of chaos ahead. I think it's going to be a little bit of a difficult road towards the end of the year. We'll talk a little bit more about that on the Happy Hour Hangout later this week. But that said, as long as Bitcoin is kind of stable over the next couple of days and is trying to break through, there's quite a bit of resistance in and around here, all the way from where it currently is at 89,800 till about 93, with a little bit of a reprieve. That's going to be some quite strong resistance in that interim. That said, if you don't have an indicator like this and not sure on how to use it, there's always the HODL fire as well. At the moment, there is a temporary top, and as mentioned before on plenty of other calls, is that that can well disappear. But how to use it? Well, there's a course for that as well. If you guys are looking to buy Bitcoin, I would have bought back down here when there was a drop. I think I did call and to say that this was the low for the next while. I don't anticipate us going any lower, at least around 85,000 for the rest of the year. I'm putting it out there, universe. I think we are going to be shuntling a little bit upwards. We did speak about a 30-day reprieve or return for Bitcoin to get up about there again. I think by the end of the year we won't quite hit there. I think we're going to be struggling with that 100,000. But I think if we break above that 100,000, the market's really going to fly, especially Bitcoin as well. But for the moment, we trade what we see. There is opportunity again, like Vicky said, from a scalp trading perspective, as well as HODL fire as well. There's some great HODL fires out at the moment as well. So. That said, you want to find out more how to scalp trade and how to hodl fire trade? Well, if you've done some of the courses, there are a couple of courses for you. But if you haven't done courses, there are courses, of course, for you to do as well. Picky.
Yeah. And one of them is on this week. But before we get to that, the large calls. So, as we said, even though the market is going sideways, which is actually a good thing for Bitcoin to be going sideways, there have been lots of scalping opportunities and hodl firing opportunities over the weekend. So, There are a couple calls and there is a course. Now, later today, there is the self-paced course call for people doing chapters 1 to 3, which is at 12 p.m. UTC. And then we're actually having another self-paced call at 4 a.m. UTC on Tuesday. So that will be the combined. So no matter what chapter or module you're on, you can jump on that one as well if you can't make the other one. And then there will be a lodge call at 6 a.m. UTC, which is normally, Wendy's normal call. And you can jump on there and ask her any questions. She always has a bit of a fun topic as well in her recent calls. So jump on there, 6 a.m. UTC on Tuesday. And then for those of you that, as John mentioned, who have done the HODLFire course, and there have been new people going into that chat because we had one last week, the HODLFire course. There is the HODLFire course graduate call on Tuesday at 12 p.m. UTC. And it's a chat. It's a chat. It's actually not a webinar. So people can jump on. We can see each other. We can chat away about all the calls that we've seen and anything that has potential coming up. So those are really fun calls. So if you have done the course, that is this week. And then we are having a HODLFire course this week. So if you haven't done the course and you are in the time zone where you can stay up from 1 p.m. to about 5 p.m. UTC, the course will be on tomorrow, actually, which is a little different than normal. So Tuesday the 16th and then again on the 19th. So again, for HODLNOTs that have already done the course and are certified as a different course, you do have quite a substantial discount for the HODLFire course. So there is still time to jump on if you want to do that. And again, it starts at 1 p.m. UTC on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we actually have the first of the HODL dot calls for those doing the 3M challenge. So that's a scalping challenge for people on the call that don't know what that is. That is when you take $40 in essence and turn it into $2,500 through scalping. So it's a self-paced challenge. You can take as much time as you want, but you are supported. And one of the ways you're supported are calls. So the first one is Wednesday at 8 p.m. UTC. And that will also be followed by another one at on Thursday on the 18th at 7 a.m. UTC. But right before that call, if you do have the HODLFire indicator, but you have not done the course, there is a call for you. So on the 18th, at 6 a.m. UTC this week, there's a call for everyone who has the HODLFire indicator. And those of you who have done the course as well can obviously jump on that one because you have the HODLFire indicator. So that's this week on Thursday. Thursday is a huge day actually because we also have the happy hour hangout. So the happy hour hangout is our last one of the year. It's 11 a.m. UTC, and we're going to be doing a year in review. So what happened this year? We're going to have that actually all important guess. About 5 months ago, we had people guess where Bitcoin was going to be. And it's really interesting. I just saw all of the entries again today, and it's really interesting what people thought. There's some interest. Yeah, there's some people that could be around the right price at that time. But anyway, that's on Thursday at 11 a.m. GTC, and we'll also have a couple more competitions, which John will post out shortly, just so you know what they are. But please jump on. It's our last one of the year, and we do also have a little bit of announcement around that for next year. So if you are available at 11 a.m. UTC, jump on live and have some fun with us. And that will be followed by the self-paced course call, which for people that are busy with chapters 4 onwards can jump on there. And as I mentioned again, Friday would be the last day of the HODLFire course. So this week is a huge week for us, as usual, but it's a little bit more busy with those couple different calls on. So it's going to be super fun.
Absolutely. Plenty of potential in the market, ladies and gents. It's
Mm.
knowing how to trade, especially these short-term scalp trades, hodl fire trades. Long term, it's a bit of a long game, right? But in the meantime, people are grabbing some great profits. I think Vicky's still in a trade on those hodl fire trades. So we won't mention which one. We'll mention it on the call tomorrow. So that said, as we start wrapping up the year, Vicky, and this being a busy week, and what are we looking forward to in terms of the thoughts that we're going to be chewing on for the rest of this week?
Yeah, it is around actually what we were talking about, that, the market is not great. People are wondering where the market's going to go. But if you ever have a question, just DM me, because if you think the world's going to end, it's already tomorrow here, so I can tell you if it has ended or not. And so, yeah. So just make use of me. But on a serious note, I didn't want to bring this call down, but there was quite a serious thing that happened in Australia over the weekend. And just to say condolences to everyone. If you're not sure what happened, you can Google it. But I just wanted to make sure everyone know that we're thinking about them. And Tanshuk meme.
All right, that's it. Yeah, we have thoughts and prayers on thinking of all those victims and what happened in Australia. But that's it, ladies and gents. Trade what you see, cherish your family, and we'll see you guys on some of the calls of this week still. Until next time, ciao, ciao.